The Happiness Advantage by Shawn Achor. And by the way, just to give a little background, we all know each other because we're real estate agents that are part of the Mike Ferry coaching program. We met at the Mike Ferry events, and we all represent different geographical areas. So I'm Tamara Weber. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I sell real estate in Phoenix, Scottsdale, and the surrounding areas. And this is Ellen Vera.
Hi, Ellen Vera. I'm a realtor out here in San Francisco Bay Area.
And what areas do you serve?
Oh boy, three counties: San Mateo, Santa Clara, and Alameda counties.
Oh wow, wow. So do you have clients that have been affected by the wildfires?
I have. I've had a few sellers who've sold down here and moved up to Santa Rosa. And of course, I always have those clients who, it's a Santa Rosa and that whole area that is undergoing the wildfires. It's a very popular place to have vacation homes and for people to retire up there. So you know, there are a couple sellers that I've had where they're like, well, we're going to have to maybe reconsider the move. Totally understand. And, you know, it's like anything. Our job is to help our clients help them make life decisions and give them the information and the resources to help them do it. So it's all good.
Oh my God, there's been so many people affected in these last 6 months by the different natural disasters. And then this is Teresa Fox.
Hello, I'm from Kansas City, licensed in Kansas and Missouri for real estate, and then I'm also a business broker.
Excellent. So you work both sides of Kansas City, right? Missouri.
Yes.
And City.
For those that don't know, Kansas City is on the border of Kansas and Missouri. It's in both states. And so as an agent, you really need to be licensed in both states. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's like just kind of almost like one big city there, basically.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of agents are not licensed on both sides, but I am. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. And we also have Bianca Mendez, and she's in southern San Diego, and she hopefully will be joining us any minute, but we're going to go ahead and start without her. So let's talk about the book, The Happiness Advantage. I think we all really enjoyed it. And who wants to start?
Teresa, what did you, first of all, what do you think of the book overall? What did you think?
Well, I had a discussion, I think, with Bianca, and she was like, this book is killing me. It's so slow. And then I looked at my notes and I realized I literally didn't take any notes until starting on chapter 14.
Oh.
So obviously it started out pretty slow. But then what was amazing was the end was like a plethora of information. And I took multiple notes on each chapter.
Okay.
So, yeah.
How about you, Ellen? Did you get through it pretty easily?
Well, I got through it easily. So I think one great thing about the book is that it did get me thinking about how does this apply to our business? How does this apply to what we're doing? And especially when it comes to when the market turns. It turns, but when, because we know we've been on an upswing, a strong market for what, 7-8 years now?
Mm-hmm.
Started about 2010. We had the recovery. We had then short sales falling off, REOs drying up, and then people are gaining equity. Prices are going up. We've been on that train for 7-8 years now. It's a market like any other market. So when I was reading the book, I was reading it from the mindset of when the market changes, what are these lessons that I can apply that are going to be that we're going to need to fall back on, just to keep us mentally in the game, but also to keep us growing our business. Because I think when the market changes, I think that's when we're going to see a lot of agents just kind of get blindsided. And that's going to be a big problem for a lot of people because buyers and sellers get blindsided when the market changes. We need to be the experts and know kind of the signs of when it's happening and be able to counsel our sellers. If you need to sell, this is what you need to do. And for buyers, if you're looking to purchase and appraisals aren't coming in, things like that, this is what we need to do. So we need to be good counselors, and we need to kind of keep emotionally, we need to keep an even keel to make sure we keep our clients on track. So there are actually a lot of things that this book talks about that really, I think can be applicable to us keeping a strong and positive mindset and how we approach our business so that we are that calming influence for our clients. I took a lot of notes when he talked about things that I think are directly applicable to what we do.
Oh, that's great. What stood out to you?
On the desktop, it's not on the...
So the ones that stood out to me the most, because he had what are there 8 principles total that he talks about? And one of them is, I think a big one is what they call, he calls it the Zorro circle, which I think is kind of a cheesy word, but there you go. Where he's talking about you master the small disciplines that,
Thank you,
what he's talking about,
400, okay.
the locus of control. So when the market changes, we have a choice of looking at it in one of two ways. One is that we have an internal locus of control, meaning we realize exactly what we can change, what we can have impact on, and what we can't, right? That's an internal locus of control, versus a lot of agents are going to have an external locus of control where they're going to look at the market and go, whoa, it's out of my control. You know, there are more expired listings. There are more people that are getting really upset about the market. I don't know how to deal with it. And therefore, my business is out of control. So when I think of the coaching that we get and our mastermind groups and the people we network with, that we can strengthen our internal locus of control because we know exactly what we can do to keep our business strong, to keep our mindset strong. We know exactly what's under our control. And we also know how to let go of control of things we can't change, right? Like the market, interest rates.
Right. Exactly.
Things the federal government does. There's no reason for us to get upset about it and emotional. We can't change it. We can try.
What I liked about that whole concept of the circle, the Zorro circle, the locus of control, is when he was talking about how it applies to feeling overwhelmed, and when you're feeling overwhelmed, to shrink it down and just find that small circle that you can focus on and master that, and then you can extend it out from there.
Exactly. And I think that's what he meant by the Zorro circle. I just don't care for that name, but I think you're right. Look at that. What are the small disciplines? What are the things that we know we can have control over, that we can change and improve?
What would be a good name for it? Let's name it.
Oh, hi.
Why do you think he calls it the Zorro circle?
Because of the Legend of Zorro, where Zorro, I guess, started off as a pretty emotional guy. He wanted to become an expert swordsman.
Oh, that's right. I remember now.
His mentor said, instead of teaching you all of this, I'm going to have you concentrating on this small circle and having to fight within that circle. Master that, and then you can expand. That's where he got.
Oh, that's awesome.
But for our purposes, I recently heard something on the Mike Ferry YouTube channel. Valerie Caro, it was 2016. She had a fantastic talk on "You Are Not a Product of the Market." And it was 12 or 13 minutes of Valerie talking about this exact same thing, the internal locus of control. What do you have control over? Once you realize what you can control and what you can't control, that you realize you can keep growing your business even in a down market. And I thought, what she had to, I just so happened to have listened to it when I was reading the book. And I think those two match up, the book and Valerie's message match up perfectly with what we're going to have to, I think it's going to happen in 2018. I think we're going to see more expired listings. We're going to see prices deflating a little bit.
I'm like, yes.
We're going to see some sellers getting hit sideways. When they thought good times were going to happen for the rest of their lives, it's not going to happen. And they're going to.
Not that we want to see expired listings. I mean, that's not the goal, right? Not the goal that sellers are going to get hurt by that. That's not the goal. But I'm saying that that's going to give us like golden opportunity to go in there and help the people that are not being helped by others. So that's where I see the excitement of it, you know?
You know, and you're right, Bianca, and it's going to come down to the agents that have the skills and the emotional stability to help people with tough decisions. We're the ones who are going to come out on top. The ones who've been grabbing business using discounts and kickbacks, but they don't. But they're relying on the market.
You guys can do kickbacks in California? That's illegal here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say kickback? I meant, you know, so severely discounting your commission or yeah, giving it back at the closing table. We see. I call it a kickback. I don't know what you call it, payoff. It could be anything, right?
Discounting.
Buying the business, yeah. And that actually kind of brings up another topic that he mentioned in the book that was related to when he said that when you can when you can define the emotion, it takes the sting out of it. And that was like one technique he talked about that was really effective is when you're feeling really emotional about something, if you can even just define it, like I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling sad, it takes a lot of the power over you out of it and helps you to, you know, keep those emotions between the lines.
I agree. And someone he references quite often in this book is a man named Martin Seligman, something called Learned Optimism. And now wait
a minute, is that the video that I sent you? I wonder if it is. Let me look. I'm gonna check.
That guy's name was Simon.
Oh, okay, Simon. So, yeah.
It was Learned Success. Yeah.
Okay, this one. Well, Martin Seligman, Dr. Seligman did research on optimism on salespeople. Imagine that. And so I think when he references Dr. Seligman's research in this Happiness Advantage book, he's looking at how do you explain when bad things happen? Is it bad luck? Is it, oh, this stuff always happens to me? Or are we able to look at it rationally and say, you know, things happen. However, like, you know, how can we overcome it? How can we correct it, right? How can we, you know, what can we control and be able to, you know, when escrows fall out and appraisals don't come in and things happen, we know exactly what we're able to do to get to kind of, as it were. And I think Dr. Seligman's work was fascinating because you can learn to be an optimist. It's not something you're born with, like blue eyes and blonde hair. You can learn it. You can change how you explain bad events. And you can certainly have some control over maybe not what happens to you, but how you react to it.
They are gifts.
Happiness, he said that happiness is not a mood, it's a work ethic.
Yeah.
That was strong.
So yeah. Did you end up liking the book, Bianca?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, girl. Thank you so much. Yeah, I totally am liking it now. Like, I'm like, ooh, it's finally, and you know what? It's crazy how the brain adjusted to the faster speed.
Oh, you did it.
Yeah, and you know what's really cool is that my son, you know, his brain is like crazy fast. It's so fast that it misses a lot of stuff. But I realized that it was the pace in which it was at. It was not. He was getting bored, and now he was like he was more into it. So it's crazy how I was able to sync up that energy because I told him, let's listen to our audiobook that we listened to on the way to school, and he was like, no, I don't want to hear that. I go, how about we listen to it this way? He said, it's too fast. I go, okay, now let's listen to it. And he was like, and it was good. I was like, yes.
Isn't that crazy how our brains work?
Yes, I was so happy about that.
Yeah.
I make my kids listen to it on the way to school too, by the way. That and motivational videos. They're always like, oh, but I know it's sinking in. It's sinking into their subconscious mind.
Yeah.
So Bianca, what in reading the book, what kind of stuck out for you of the big lessons that you got out of the book?
Okay, so let me go to my new note-taking skills here.
Research even shows that regular meditation can permanently.
So basically, hold on one second, I'm sorry.
You know what, while you're doing that, I'll share one of my key points that I liked the most about it. We talked about this the other day. I think it's principle number 6. He calls it the 20-second rule. And the idea behind it is that when something is difficult to do, it's because you've made it 20 seconds harder than it needs to be. And sometimes what's easier to do is 20 seconds easier. So the example he gave is it was easier for him to watch TV at night than to practice his guitar, because it's so much easier just to grab the remote, turn on the TV, whereas he would have to go to the closet, get the guitar out. And so he took the batteries out of the remote and put them in the other room and put his guitar in the middle of the room so that it was that much closer, and that made all the difference. After that, he was able to play his guitar. So I know a lot of people do that, like with workout clothes. They'll lay them out the night before, or you know, I think he even said he slept in his workout clothes for a while.
I've done that.
whatever works, right?
Exactly. Yeah. If that's what it takes, sometimes you just got to do it.
But you're right. I think he mentioned in the book, it's that 20 seconds. If you make something easy to do, you're more apt to do it. And I think he took the batteries out of his remote. Watch TV, you have to find the batteries, have to put them in, and at some point you go, oh, forget it. Nah, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, that's why I think, honestly, like I love Mojo so much, because it just takes the brain work out of it. I just pick the list, push play, start, whatever, and then I don't have to think about calling. I don't have to look up the numbers. I notice whenever I'm making phone calls, any other method, I start to overanalyze. I study, like, when did I talk to them last, and what did they say? I mean, it doesn't matter. Just call them. Hey, do you still want to sell your house?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So, did you find your notes, Bianca?
Yeah, I did. Okay, so I love how it talked about, growing your brain. I'm so into that. And Teresa, I know that you're taking like some really good vitamins for your brain. I'm not at that level yet. Like, I'm not taking all the stuff for my brain, but I do drink greens at least 3 to 4 times a week, where I do those just all green juice. And then so I do that part, like I'm very conscious about that, because that grows your mitochondria in your brain cells, right? Mm-hmm. Which is really, really important, since I fried them all when I was young. So anyways, what I'm saying is that it said that meditation grows your frontal cortex. And so Mike talked about, remember when I was telling you what he was talking about, when you're tired or overwhelmed, that your subconscious level takes over and you go into some old patterns, or you take the easiest route, the path of least resistance, right? And so if you take the time to meditate, calm your brain down, disconnect, not only are you going to grow your frontal, what is it, cortex? What do they call it? Frontal cortex?
frontal lobes, I think.
Your frontal cortex.
Yeah.
But that's probably why it recovers you. You know what I mean? Because you're feeding that part of your brain. So I just thought that was really awesome. And then one of the things that I liked is like what gives you like what is the little things that are going to do to make you happy, because you have to train your brain to look for the happy. You have to. It's a learned process. It's a habitual practice. You have to be able to raise your baseline happiness level. I've always considered myself a happy person, but when I don't know if it's like getting older or more into routine of things, it's like you got to work at being happy sometimes, sometimes you're not always happy. But if I can raise that baseline happiness and it can positively affect my relationships and my business and my attraction factor to the things I want in my life, let's do what we got to do, right? And so one of the things that I realized is that I gain enormous satisfaction from working out. It boosts my happiness factor in a big way. The fact that I've completed a challenge, the fact that I've grown my muscles, I guess, or grown my stamina, and also because of how alert I feel my brain after I work out. And as I mentioned to you girls before, I'm doing that challenge, and I swear I don't think I've worked out this hard in 20 years. Honestly, I don't think I've worked out this hard in 20 years. And
I can vouch for that. Your workouts are crazy hard.
No, seriously, I haven't worked out this hard in 20 years with this new challenge that I'm doing. If you girls saw the stuff that I do. But anyways, what I realized is that it's a mental challenge, because I could say, oh, this is hard. And what is the coach going to say? It's okay. But I've been like looking at my weights. I've been looking at my medicine balls. Huh?
I said, that's not what my coach would say.
Yeah, I've been.
He would use the F word and he would yell at me.
Yeah, but I've been looking at it and just really like, you are not going to get me. Like, you're not going to be better than me. You are not going to stop me. I am going to stop you. And being more conscious of directing my mind and how powerful it is when you practice it and you're more conscious of it. It's crazy. And I'm like testing it in these crazy workouts. And so I'm really enjoying that like discovery phase of it, like that it's really working. So we can do the same thing in the happiness baseline is what I'm trying to increasing that baseline. So those are the things that I got that really habitual practice, raise your happiness baseline. Happiness is a work ethic. When you're stressed, I can do a mindset shift of thinking of things that make me happy in the past and then rerouting the groves to not the bad habits, but the good habits, right? Just consciously rerouting that. So that's pretty much it from the additional portion that I've got to.
Excellent. How about you, Teresa? What were your key takeaways?
Well, I want to add something to what Bianca just said. Talking about happiness is a choice. And so I've had people say to me, you're positive crap. I don't believe in your positive crap. It's self-medicating. You're medicating by being, do you know what I'm saying? And so there is truth to that. I have read some books about living wholeheartedly, and there are people that always pretend that everything is great, even when it's not. So, but instead of pretending, oh, it's all rainbows and unicorns, I mean, you actually acknowledge, wow, that really sucked, but this is what I learned from it, and then you turn it into a positive in that manner. It's not pretending that the bad stuff's not there. Just to be clear to all those people out there that are Debbie Downers. And what's interesting about this book is it talks about the people that live like that, the pessimists and the optimists, and the statistics, which I don't have the note in front of me directly. Statistically, I think it was like 80%, they have an 80% chance of being depressed. And and actually suffering from depression. Whereas an optimist that always looks at things as growing, like I'm learning a lesson from this, we have a very small percentage. For one thing, it also talks about getting sick. People that are optimists don't get sick as long, where people that are pessimists stay sick longer. I just thought that was really interesting. That's this book, right? My big takeaways from this book, without even looking at my notes, definitely, I just want to say that it confirms that I'm right, what I say to my children. Video games matter. I know there's a TED Talk, and I have been forced to watch it, about how video games are good for your mind. And I do believe it does teach strategic thinking. And I can tell you, my son could be the general of an army any day. I truly believe that. But in his example, he played, and I'm completely against this game, 110%, Grand Theft Auto. He talks about it in the book, how he played till 4 in the morning. And your brain always wants to save energy. So it switches over to your subconscious mind. So he actually switched over, and without even thinking, went over and grabbed the doorknob on a cop car and was thinking, I'm going to steal the cop car. And then he snapped out of it. And so he talks about how our brains work. And that's the whole thing with the 20-second rule. Our brains are going to save energy. It's not lazy. It's a survival skill. We don't want to waste energy thinking about every single thing. We don't waste energy thinking about brushing our teeth or getting dressed or keeping our clothes on all day long, I think is an example that he gave, or maybe that's what he said. Seriously. We don't have to think about all that. We don't think about breathing. You know what I'm saying? So the 20-second rule totally makes sense to me, how he changed. And one thing that I thought about that I do at my house is we don't buy soda or junk food. Now, I do have periods of time in the holidays. I go all out, and they can have whatever soda they want, and we celebrate, and they can drink, I don't care, a case of it. I don't care, because they know they're going to get that time. But then any other time, you know what I'm saying? There's got to be a time for everything. So, but I don't buy it. And so when you want a Coke, you literally have to drive to the store to get a Coca-Cola. And we're like, I'm not driving to the store to get a Coke. So we end up drinking water instead. So I do use that, and I never knew the reason why. And it's because your brain doesn't want to put forth the effort. And so I have started literally laying things out in front of me that I need to do. So it's right in front of me. Because then it's easy just to grab, like my books, I have books laying everywhere because it's right there. I'll just grab it and get a few pages in and put it down. I'm sure all of you have your lead cards laying everywhere, which I'll be in trouble for my desk because it's, you know. But anyway, so yeah, I actually talked to my boys about, this makes a difference. The video games make a difference, and not necessarily in a good way. So I think there needs to be a restriction on time there. And then the biggest thing that I've gotten from this book was the circle. Because I have projects at my house that I have not done because I look at them and I get way overwhelmed. And I thought, he is so right. And actually, I just changed my office like in a day. I woke up and thought, this is the circle I'm going to work on today, and I got it done. And I've been waiting months to get it done. And so I did the little circle at my house, and I'm going to keep expanding it. And I think that's true with what we're learning in our coaching. They're teaching us little tiny circles. Like mine's working on my calendar and working on my presentation. And, you know, there's these circles that we're focusing on fine-tuning that one skill. And then once it becomes second nature, our brain saves energy, clicks it back over, we can start focusing on something else because it just comes natural. So the psychology behind it made a lot of sense to me. Yeah, the end of the book, there was just one thing after another that and also that your brain is a one-track, you can only focus on, you can only focus on one stream. I can't remember the exact verbiage that it used, but you can't focus on positive and negative. Our brain is only a one-track mind. So you're either going to focus on the positive or focus on the negative. And so when it's a pattern, because your brain's saving energy, and you see everything as a negative, you know, it just makes sense. I mean, the book just made a lot of things click, and affirmation of everything that we learn. Yeah.
And I liked also when he was talking about gratitude. Of course, you know, that's a theme that comes up all the time, that the more grateful you are, the more joy you feel in your life. But what I thought was really interesting is that not only making a list of what you're grateful for, but even you recommended a list of what you enjoy about your job or what you love about your job, and that'll enhance your enjoyment of it. And then he talked about that one experiment with, I think it was the nuns, right, where they made journal entries. And he said even just writing a quick 2 or 3 sentences about a positive experience can have a huge impact. So I thought that was really interesting.
I took that too, and I made my boys now at the dinner table, they have to present 3 things that they were grateful for the day. And my middle child is very like, I mean, he can just rattle them off. My youngest child, I'm grateful for my shoes. You know, I mean, he's scrambling. I'm just like, this is a little bit bothersome, but
you know what, it really does become a habit. Like the more you do it, the easier it is to start seeing. So yeah, I mean, that's great that he's even starting big, and especially
well, it's being forced.
Yeah. I also thought it was kind of interesting what he was talking about, like, can optimism be overdone? And this kind of goes back to that conversation we had before about, I think it was the one when we were talking about in that Pablo Coelho book, The Alchemist.
Oh, yeah.
Hearing the oil in the spoon, like not taking your mind off the reality. And, you know, that's kind of the lesson. And he talks about how it's not rose-colored lenses, it's rose-tinted lenses. Like you still see the problem. Mm-hmm. You're not ignoring the problem. You're not just being Pollyanna. I love my present. I love my present. But you're looking.
I mean, that kind of goes to what Teresa was mentioning about. I mean, there's a some people out there, I guess, Pollyannas, right, where they're not facing reality, and I think that's kind of the irritation when you hear people talk. Oh, you're a positive person and you're so happy, around those people. But I think you're right, Tamara, that it comes down to, are we able to face reality and to see it as it is and know that we have the choice of how we're going to react to it, right?
Right. That's just it. It's how we react. Mm-hmm. We can all react poorly. We can all say, oh my gosh, this is awful, and go on about how awful it is. Or we can choose the other side of it. What lesson did I just learn?
Yeah.
How can I take this adversity and make it a positive?
Yeah, and that's not ignoring reality.
Yeah.
Changing your response pattern.
Yes. There's a big difference.
And that's emotional control.
Yes, and maturity.
And I thought too, it was interesting the part where he was talking about the guy that heckled him. You know, he raised his hand in the lecture and said, you know, this is all just common sense, blah, blah, blah. And he was all upset by it. And then he had one of his key learnings from his research in the book, because some people pulled him aside and said, that guy is the most unhappy guy you've ever met. You know, he can't even be on teams because he's so toxic. And his learning from that was that, yeah, it is common sense, but common sense isn't always common action. And like there's so much that's common sense, but it doesn't always translate to what we actually do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, that's a good point. How many people still smoke, even though we know smoking is bad for you, but people still do it, right? So you're right. So you hit the nail on the head. Common sense is not common action.
I thought the experiment that he did that was really interesting to me was the one he did with the hotel employees. I think it was like something like 7,000 maids in hotels. And the only difference between the control group and the experimental group is that one group, he said, he gave them the instruction that all the cleaning they do burns calories. And at the end of the, they all did the same amount of work, you know, but at the end, the people that he'd given that instruction to, they reported that they felt better, they lost weight, they were in better shape, and how, like, our mind, it's really just what we believe about something that can make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and our expectations.
Yes.
That's right.
One of my notes I took was our brain reacts to stress and financial problems the same way our ancestors did to a saber-toothed tiger. You know how it dumps chemicals and everything, and so learning to not let that part of our brain take over. There's a maturity level and a practice that he talks about. And then of course it goes on, which is all the books that we read, is never give up, never give up, never give up, and fail all the time. Because he said you don't fail down, what is it? You don't, I just had it. Success is not falling down, it's falling up. And success is about using those failures to skyrocket us forward and learn from them and grow. So failing is a good thing.
You know, one of the things I tell myself, like when I feel like I failed, I acknowledge it and but I will always win more than I'll fail, because the more you fail, the more you're gonna win. So I just remind myself, yeah, I failed, but you know what? I'm a winner because I'm failing. I'm always gonna win. Like the next no brings me closer to that yes. You know what I mean? And I remind myself that of it. So like when we get somebody nasty on the phone, I'm like, ha, something good around the corner. I got you. You don't got me. So.
That's funny. Yeah.
Well, good. Guys, I really have to get going. But I enjoyed this book. I thought it was good. I think it had a lot of lessons that we could apply to what we do. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and also I just wanted to mention, in case you know, anybody's interested, the reason we chose this book is because the last book we read was The Virgin Way by Richard Branson, who's obviously, you know, this multi-billionaire, and he mentioned that it was one of the most impactful books in his life and that he wished he would have read it sooner. So we're like, all right, well, what can we learn from this book?
Did you notice that he has a plug in the book? The guy talks about him in the book. So I'm kind of confused how he said I should have read it a long time ago. Yeah. Did you hear the part he got a plug? He brings up Richard Branson in the book.
Yeah, but I mean, but wasn't it, what was the plug again? It was something about a conversation they had, right?
He talks about his company and how his company runs on creating happiness in the workplace.
Oh, yeah.
That he's known. Everybody wants to work for his company because that's what he believes in.
All right. Well, yeah, I really enjoyed the book too. So, yeah, so next week it's Think and Grow Rich. And we'll probably have to break it down into 2 sessions because it's a very dense book. Lots of information. So, all right. Have a good week. See you next time.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.